Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. Season 18 starts tomorrow and with it comes the addition of Roadhog into competitive, a few hero changes that were on the PTR, and Sigma will go onto the live servers but we won't see him until Season 19. You know the drill, we go over each of the best and worst heroes to be playing in the next season. Not so much play these heroes to climb in rank, but hey, if you enjoy playing these heroes, now is a good time to play them in competitive. We'll get straight into the list. I personally don't think there's any major hot takes in this list, so some of these heroes that we'll go over we don't really need to describe too much. For example, if we start with the tanks, Arista is the best option. Like I put in my comments, duh, you know, it's not really too much of a surprise with the damage that she can put out, the shields that she's able to spam, the Halt Hook combo with Roadhog, all very, very strong. When it comes to competition with the other main tanks, Arisa is the best by far. Off tanks, we mentioned the Halt Hook combo, so Roadhog is definitely the best option to be running if you are wanting to play the off tank role. However, I do feel the D.Va can be just as viable as Hog, especially in ladder. It depends on a few things. If you're a bad Hog, if you're not getting any hooks, any kills, you're just feeding ult charge, you want to be going on to D.Va. But also we have been seeing some of the pro teams running D.Va instead of Hog in some cases because they're not getting picks with their own Halt Hook combo, or they're wanting to play more defensively. They can't get their Halt Hook combo, so they want to stop the enemy team from getting theirs. So if you're being dominated by the Arisa Roadhog on the enemy team, you can maybe switch up your Roadhog to be a D.Va to protect your team a little bit more. You lose a bit of the shield spam damage and the sustain that Roadhog can bring to a fight, but if you're a better D.Va than a Roadhog, you can play D.Va. Even though she was nerfed quite recently, I still think she's a really good hero to be playing. For supports, Ana is still a solid pick. Now is a really good time to be learning her, playing her, practicing her, much like I am. Big healing output, effective range because of course you're a sniper, and a huge amount of utility, especially with the anti-nade. But I think one of the best support heroes currently is actually Baptiste. He's certainly one of my favourites to play and the most fun at the moment, and I feel like you have a little bit more room to breathe playing Baptiste than you would Ana. If you're playing Ana and you get dove on by a Winston, Genji, Tracer, Doomfist, whatever, it can be really difficult to try and survive that whilst also supporting your team. Baptiste, as I said, you have a bit more leeway with the amount of healing that you can put out, your immortality field, and the damage that you can do yourself. I used to think he was quite niche, really for areas like the first point of Paris, but I do think you can make him work in any given situation really. Wherever Ana's good, Baptiste can also be played too, and you can mix and match whatever supports really. Moira is another big winner for me actually, in terms of what heroes are good going into this. Bear in mind that Moira isn't coming into the game with those fade changes, meaning that she could get out of being charged, stunned, hooked, whatever. She could just fade out, that's been reverted, no longer a thing. But if you actually look at the Overwatch League pick rate, Moira's isn't half bad. It's not the best, it's not the worst, it's pretty good. And you can sort of see some of the gameplay in the background of teams running this strategy with the Lucio, mostly on control maps to be honest, but it's just a given situation where Moira can be really effective. And she's just a really good option if you need more healing alongside a support that has a lot of utility. Zenyatta, and especially Lucio. This is less of a she's really good player all the time, but more of a she's much better than you think. If you're struggling on Ana Baptiste, falling back onto Moira isn't a bad option. Now that you can't stack healers, I think this is a really good time to be playing Moira, at least now and again. For winners, DPS, I think Mei is the best option. Much like some of the other DPS heroes we're going over in a second, she has 250 health, making her a very tanky DPS hero. She has a lot of survivability, either putting her wall up in the way of damage coming in or using her ice block. She can freeze and CC targets, she has no fall off on her right click, but I guess most importantly, her wall is really good at breaking up that Halt Hook combo from an enemy Arisa and Roadhog. You can protect your team, you could use your wall to block off the enemy, cut them apart and kill them one by one. You just have so much utility, a lot of health and sustain, and you're just such a big problem for the enemy team to deal with. She is a very niche hero to pick up, much like Sombra. Sombra is really good at the highest tiers, but if you just sort of think that you can click on her, play her and do really well from that, you'll be sadly mistaken. But if you want to put in the time, or have been putting in the time with Mei, now is a really good time to make her shine. Reaper and Doomfist are also on this list for similar reasons, with the amount of damage that they could do, but also the fact that they have 250 health and a huge amount of sustain. Doomfist with his little shields from doing damage, Reaper from the health regen he gets from doing damage too. So all three of these heroes can be mixed and matched to make quite a tanky high sustain composition, which some are even calling mini mini goats, which to give you a sense of how this comp works. I'm not saying that you just pick these heroes and you can instantly win, but if you are a good Mei, Reaper or Doomfist, you will have a lot of fun this meta, I promise you. Widowmaker and Hanzo, snipers are really good, insta-killing people, especially in a meta where you can't just stack tanks, I think is going to be really important and integral. Hanzo especially, with the amount of utility, shield break that he has, he's just one of the best DPS heroes at the moment. Widowmaker, if you can click heads, she is also one of the best DPS heroes in the game. But a hero that often falls behind on these two is Ashe, but I still think that Ashe is a good hero, for ladder play especially. Sometimes you have a Widowmaker that can't hit shots. Ashe is a nice happy medium for being able to do a lot of damage from a distance to being able to think on your feet up close. Nothing beats the other sniper's one-shot potential though, but if you have an Ashe and she's damage boosted by a Mercy, that kind of makes up for it. She's not as good as Widow Hanzo, but I still think she isn't far behind. So these are some of the best heroes in the game to be playing for Season 18 and beyond. But now that we get onto the sort of worst heroes, there's not really any bad heroes that you should definitely avoid playing, if I'm being honest. We'll go over each of them in a case-by-case basis, but it's less that these heroes are really bad, never play them. If you pick them, your team are going to be very angry at you, and rightly so. Really isn't like that at all. It's more of a, you can climb to Masters or GM or even top 500 playing any of these heroes, but it might come at the cost of losing your sanity, or your team's sanity. The road isn't going to be paved for you very well, I guess is what I mean. A firm example of that is Reinhardt. Now Reinhardt as a hero is in a much better state than he was before because of the knockback reduction passive that he's getting. After playing Reinhardt, it's a lot nicer to deal with when you're being punched across the map by a Doomfist. You're like, oh, this is much better than before. But his place in this bunker comp meta just isn't as good. This isn't a dramatic thing, Blizzard don't need to buff him or anything. It's just one of those cases where the hero's good, but this just isn't his time. And considering how meta Reinhardt was in GOAT's comp for however long, I think he's due a break on the side for a bit. Could do a bit of a holiday, I guess. And Winston's in a similar sort of spot. His pick rate and win rate looking at overbuff is pretty dire, but I would definitely say that Winston is very much a playable hero that people should maybe be picking up more, because dive comp is very much playable right now. But when you're going into a predominant bunker comp meta, it's very difficult to get people on board to play dive with you. Sometimes you'll just have teams going, right, I'm going Genji, they're going Tracer, let's just dive. We're on Watchpoint Gibraltar, this is a great place to play this comp, and it will work. But if you want to play Winston all the time and you end up on, I don't know, let's say King's Row, you're going to struggle. And not only that, your team might be like, can we get an Orisa instead? As the main tank in a dive comp going into a lot of bunker comps, you'll be driving headfirst into some tough team lineups, which I said is possible to win, but at the cost of your own sanity, I think. If Reinhardt is a loser, then I think Zarya definitely follows. While she had a little bit of a damage boost because of the changes on the PTR, when it comes to beam damage at least, she can't really be used anywhere else that isn't with a Reinhardt. She's not very good in Orisa Bunker, she's not very good with Wrecking Ball or Winston Dive. She can only really be played in those Ryan Zarya combos on the likes of King's Row, Lijiang Tower, you know those maps where Reinhardt has always been good. Zarya is the best option there, but that is a very niche situation, which if you're trying to run Zarya all the time, might be tricky. And Sigma is also on this list, unfortunately. I would say that he would be a wildcard pick going into Season 19 because of course he isn't going to be in for Season 18, but he does come into the game a little bit undertuned and definitely quite clunky in comparison to other heroes and options. He isn't a bad hero by any stretch of the imagination, but there's better options than him right now. In the right hands, he could be a god pick, but until then, before you're at that stage, it may cause a lot of arguments with your team that really don't want you to pick him. They would consider you throwing by choosing Sigma in those cases, especially early season. That's where I think people are going to be very annoyed by your pick and cause a lot of arguments. But I do think the Sigma over time, his pick rate will start going up, his win rate most importantly will start going up. He will level out over time, but to begin with, a very dicey pick that you may need to be careful of. There's another hero like this, which is Brigitte. I actually rate the new Brigitte quite a lot. I know that's a very controversial opinion, but I think she can output a lot of healing, especially on defense. She's really good at peeling for her other supports or the rest of her team. If played in the right playstyle, she can be really, really good. However, if you're intending to play this new Brigitte like the old one, as in being more of a brawly, frontline, tank healer hybrid, you're going to get shafted quite a lot. You can't have that aggressive playstyle anymore. I know some of you it's going to be very hard to convince that Brigitte isn't a trash pick, and that's kind of the reason why she's on this list. I'm pretty happy with my own own opinion, but I know that if I went into competitive playing new Brigitte, I may find players like yourself that go, switch off new Brigitte, she's not very good, that may again consider it throw-in, much like I said about Sigma. And much like Sigma, over time her stats will get better as players learn to adapt to her new playstyle, but Brigitte is still a very tanky, very hard to kill hero that can output a lot of healing in the right hands. How consistent that could be? That's very much up in the air, and that's the wait and see part of Brigitte. Can she be as consistent as an Ana or a Baptiste in the right hands? That's why she's a bit of a dicey pick, much like Sigma. But what about the other supports that we haven't mentioned? Are they any good? Mercy Zen and Lucio, they are good choices, but they're not as good as Ana or Baptiste currently. You can mix and match each of the supports in different lineups so long as you have the right amount of healing. Don't go Lucio Zenyatta as an example because it'll be difficult to keep your team alive, but you will have a fun support meta if you are a support player, so enjoy it. Variety is the spice of life there. For main tank players, it's kind of a Risa or bust right now, which is really unfortunate. But what about bad DPS heroes? Are there any? And the answer there is I think not really. There are some heroes if you look at the Overwatch League stats from Omnic Meta that have a 0% pick rate. Some of the heroes that I said were actually quite good, like Ashe, and maybe even new Symmetra. But Soldier 76 and Torbjorn have a 0% pick rate, but for ladder you can play any of these heroes and strive all the way to the likes of Masters and GM, so long as you're good on those heroes. It's much like Sombra, right? You can't just pick her because, you know, Tavik said that she's broken. Play her in gold, you'll probably suck. But that's not because she's bad in the meta of gold, it's because it's very hard to get the same impact as a top 500 player. So for DPS, you could basically pick whatever you want. So long as you learn these heroes, really practice them and try and get good, you will have impact playing whatever you want in regards to the DPS tier. You can't just hope to pick up Soldier 76 and pop off though. And some heroes are easier to do stuff on than others, that's for sure. But that is our Overwatch Central best and worst heroes for season 18. Like I said, I don't necessarily think that there were any, hot takes in this video. I just wanted to kind of get that information out there. Some of it's really straightforward, some of it might be surprising, but that's what I certainly think are going to be the really good heroes that you want to be picking up a little bit more in season 18, and heroes that might not be as good, but we explained exactly why. Hope you enjoyed the video, take care, we'll see you next time.